At a family party, FIL threw away my food without any explanation, but later I found out my MIL had secretly put my life-threatening allergen in it to test whether my allergy was real. It was a Saturday afternoon, and my husband, 34, and I, 32, arrived at his parents' house for a reunion with his extended family, cousins, aunts, uncles, and everyone in between. These events are routine. They happen multiple times a year, a time for catching up, sharing food, and maintaining family bonds. But for me, it's always been a cautious affair because of my severe, life-threatening food allergy, one I've had since childhood. Even tiny amounts of my allergen can trigger anaphylaxis, making it essential that I control my environment meticulously. Over the years, I've developed strict routines. I prepare all my meals at home using my own utensils, containers, and ingredients. I never trust others cooking completely, especially since Mill, my mother-in-law, 60, has a tendency to make comments about my caution, implying I'm overreacting or complicating things. She's often tried to convince me to taste her food, claiming she's careful, but I've always refused, knowing the risk. My husband fully supports my precautions, understanding the severity of my allergy, and has always stood by me on this matter. That day, I brought my own dish, carefully prepared, allergen-free, and packed in a small, neat container. As usual, I placed it on the kitchen counter, away from the main dishes, a ritual I've followed countless times. The kitchen was lively, filled with conversations and the clatter of dishes. I stood back, chatting with my husband and some family members, occasionally glancing at my food, which was sitting untouched. My father-in-law, Phil, 62, was in the kitchen at the time. He was observing quietly, as he often does, an attentive, gentle man who rarely causes a scene. I set my container down, turned to talk to someone, and he watched me closely. His gaze held no suspicion or concern, just a quiet, observant stare. I took this as normal. Phil is known to be reserved, someone who prefers to listen rather than interfere. Later, as plates were being filled and family members queued for food, I went back into the kitchen to retrieve my meal. That's when I realized it was gone. My stomach clenched. I looked around the counters thinking maybe I'd misplaced it or someone had moved it. I asked my husband if he'd seen it, but he hadn't. I then turned to Mill, already busy serving herself from the casserole dishes, and asked if she'd moved my container. She waved dismissively and told me she was busy, hadn't seen it, and was focused on her cooking. A sinking feeling settled in. I knew I couldn't eat any of the available dishes. My allergy was too dangerous. I kept searching the counter, anxiety mounting. Then I saw Phil standing near the trash can, his expression strangely unreadable. I approached him calmly, trying to keep my voice steady, and asked if he'd seen my food container. He looked me directly in the eyes, then pointed to the trash. My heart sank. I asked why he'd thrown it out, reminding him it was my only safe food. His answer, delivered with a strange calm, was simply, "I had my reasons. It's for the best." No explanation, no elaboration, just that vague reassurance. I was stunned. Shocked, honestly. I repeated, "Why? You know I can't eat anything else." But he just waved his hand dismissively. I asked my husband if he knew anything. His face was a mixture of confusion and concern. Neither of us could understand why Phil would do such a thing. Then I saw some movement from the corner of my eye. Other family members had begun to notice the tension. The open-plan layout meant that whispers drifted into the adjacent dining area. I told Phil that his actions were unacceptable and that he had no right to discard my food, especially given the severity of my allergy. My voice was firm but controlled. I was trying not to panic. Just then, Mill approached, her face a mask of nonchalance. She dismissed my concerns, saying I was overreacting, that she had cooked some dishes I might be able to eat. I told her I couldn't risk it, that she knew how dangerous my allergy was. She rolled her eyes and continued serving herself, brushing past me. As the minutes passed, my anxiety turned into dread. I couldn't eat anything at this point. My safe meal was gone, and the rest of the food was contaminated in her kitchen. My mind raced. Why would she do this? What was her motive? I tried to stay calm, but the knot in my stomach tightened. Suddenly, I noticed Phil near the trash again. His face was tense, eyes avoiding mine. I approached him again, voice steady but edged with concern, and asked if he'd thrown out my container. This time, he looked me in the eye and nodded. I threw it away, he said softly. I saw her do it. I saw Mill open your container and sprinkle something in it. I couldn't let you get sick. I just... I couldn't. My breath caught. I stared at him, speechless. He explained that Mill had been tampering with my food, adding a powder from a small clear bag. He saw her stir it into my meal before closing the lid. Her reason? She wanted to see if my allergy was real or just an exaggeration, perhaps thinking I was faking or trying to get attention. Her words echoed in my mind. Test whether your allergy is genuine, as if my health was some game to her. Phil's voice quivered as he recounted how he confronted her afterward. She broke down crying, but then her tears turned into anger. She blamed me, claimed I was overreacting, said that she only wanted to test me and that I was too sensitive. Her accusations were laced with venom, claiming I was demanding or difficult, trying to turn everyone against her. I felt a mixture of horror and rage. This wasn't just passive-aggressive behavior. It was malicious, deliberate, and dangerous. The room spun slightly. My mind blurred with the realization that someone I had trusted was capable of such betrayal. I looked at my husband, who was listening intently, his face pale. We decided we needed answers, immediate ones. Later that evening, I called Phil. He was visibly distressed, and when he finally spoke, his voice was shaky. He admitted he'd seen Mill tampering with my food and that he was overwhelmed by fear of her hurting me, fear of what she might do if she realized he knew. In a panic, he'd thrown away my container to protect me. He said he wanted to tell us everything, but the situation had spiraled out of control before he could. His remorse was palpable. He kept saying, I couldn't let her do it. I had no choice. The next day, we returned to the house, confronting Mill with Phil's account. The atmosphere was tense, thick with unspoken truths. Phil stood firm as he recounted what he'd seen. Mill's face twisted into a mixture of anger and defiance. She didn't deny that she'd put the allergen in my food. Instead, she launched into a tirade. She claimed I was the problem, that my allergy made her life difficult, that I was overly sensitive, that I was trying to manipulate her, and that she only wanted to see if I was faking. Her words were venomous, her tears insincere. She accused me of being selfish, demanding, and said I was trying to control her. My husband's patience snapped. He told her she was dangerous, that she could have killed me. Then he asked her to apologize, to take responsibility. She refused, instead shouting that I was ruining her family, that I was the one causing the rift. Her voice echoed with bitterness and accusations. Phil looked at her with a mixture of disappointment and heartbreak. He no longer recognized her. We left shortly after, feeling a mixture of devastation and resolve. I knew I couldn't trust her anymore. My husband was angry, his trust in his mother shattered. His father, Phil, was visibly broken. His quiet, gentle demeanor now weighed down by regret and sorrow. The damage was done, and the fracture in the family was irreparable. In the days that followed, the situation worsened. We chose to cut all contact with Mill, no calls, no visits, until she acknowledged her actions and sought help. Her messages to my husband grew more frantic, long, rambling texts filled with guilt, blame, and denial. She insisted she was misunderstood, that I was overreacting, and that she'd never intentionally harm me. Meanwhile, she continued spreading false stories among relatives, claiming I was faking my allergy and that Phil misunderstood her intentions. Her family is divided. Some, horrified by her behavior, have reached out in support or expressed regret. Others remain loyal to her, defending her actions or dismissing the severity. Her sister, my husband's aunt, has been particularly vocal, supporting her and claiming I'm overreacting. She's called my husband, insisting I should be more understanding, that hosting and dealing with my allergy is a burden. Meanwhile, her other sister, another aunt, has sided with Mill, refusing to see the danger in her actions. Things took a darker turn when Mill showed up unannounced at our apartment. I was working from home when I heard the doorbell ring repeatedly. Looking through this peephole, I saw her standing there, crying and calling my name. I didn't open the door. She started banging, calling for me to talk, to fix everything. I stayed silent, hoping she'd leave. But then she began yelling that I was heartless, destroying her family, blaming me for everything. A neighbor, hearing the commotion, stepped outside. When he saw her crying and yelling, he threatened to call security. She finally left after that, but the experience left me shaken, feeling vulnerable and trapped in my own home. My husband was furious when I told him what happened. He called his father, who was distressed. Phil explained that Mill had been acting irrationally all day, and he tried to intervene. He apologized for her behavior, expressing regret that he hadn't done more earlier, and admitted he was overwhelmed by her instability. The emotional toll has been heavy. Sleep is elusive, work is harder. The family's unity, once a source of strength, now feels like a distant memory. The betrayal by someone I thought I knew, someone who appeared reasonable, has shattered my trust and sense of safety. Meanwhile, Phil's situation has spiraled further. He's decided to leave her after nearly 40 years of marriage, feeling that her unpredictable, dangerous behavior is beyond repair. He's filed for divorce, and his decision is final. His parting words to me were filled with sadness and regret. He said he feels like he's lost his wife and his son, and that he's exhausted trying to understand her. His face, once calm and composed, now shows signs of age and fatigue. Mill's response has been relentless. She sent a lengthy, angry letter filled with accusations, blame, and hatred. She claims I've manipulated and controlled her, that I faked my allergy for attention, and that I've destroyed her family. She's called me a cuckoo in her nest, implying I've pushed her out of her own marriage. The letter is disturbing, so unhinged that we've kept a copy for legal protection, should her behavior escalate further. Her attempts to contact my husband at work have also been alarming. She's called his office multiple times, crying and claiming a family emergency, forcing the receptionist to transfer her line. My husband, embarrassed and frustrated, has had to instruct staff not to connect her again, knowing her behavior is spiraling out of control. Her family continues to take sides. Some, like her sister and a few cousins, support her, insisting we're overreacting or blaming me entirely. Others, like Phil's sister, are horrified and sympathetic, recognizing her dangerous instability. The division among relatives deepens, and the atmosphere is toxic. Throughout all this chaos, I keep asking myself, how could someone I once saw as kind, quiet, and reasonable suddenly turn into this? Why would she risk my life, deliberately tampering with my food? The thought that she wanted to test whether my allergy was real, to see if I was faking or exaggerating, is beyond comprehension. The emotional toll is immense. I feel betrayed, frightened, and exhausted. My trust in family, once unshakable, is shattered. But I also feel a sense of validation, knowing that her dangerous actions have finally been exposed and that my husband and I are taking steps to protect ourselves. This experience has revealed a side of her no one should see, malicious, unstable, and capable of causing real harm. I never imagined I'd face something like this, but I stand firm. Her actions, especially trying to poison me, are unforgivable. Moving forward, we are determined to rebuild our lives with caution, support, and a firm resolve to prioritize safety and truth, even if that means losing family bonds that once seemed unbreakable.